Hi friends, thanks for watching this Nerdy Book Club video. My name is Colby Sharp. Stacey Riedmiller is a 5th grade teacher in Ohio. In this video, she talks about how she uses reading conferences to help build community in her classroom. Thanks for watching.
Oh, there's one person. 4, 5. I didn't know how this was going to work because I'm on my phone instead of my computer, so I was hoping I would be able to see everybody. So, Karina, can you hear me all right? You can hear me? Good. Is this loud enough? Should I talk louder? Okay, good. All right, 13 people. Yay! Hi, people that are coming in. It says the number of people watching your video is increasing. That's a good thing, right? Hi. Oh my gosh, this is exciting. I've done Facebook Live on my private page, my personal page, private, that sounds weird. My personal page, but I haven't done anything on here yet, so I'm really excited. Sarah, oh, it's so cool seeing everybody's names pop up. I'm gonna give it maybe a couple more minutes and wait till some more people get in here before I start talking about who I am and what I want to talk about. There's Amanda, my little Amanda. Hi, Nancy, Sandy, yay. Hey girl, what's going on? Hi, Melissa. 25 people, ooh, 30, wait, it says 25 down here and 34 up there. Christina, yay. Yay, yay, yay. Sorry, it's Sunday night, so I'm a little tired. We got a play set in our backyard today, and the girls, my daughters, have been playing outside all day. Hey, Jenny. Yeah, I'm in my classroom, so you can kind of see our classroom book a day display back there in the back, and then some other ones that I haven't had time to print out the covers that we've liked recently, like Be Quiet, so good. And The Legend of Rock, Paper, Scissors, we just kind of stacked those up on the board so people could still see that we've read those books, but we don't have the pictures for them up there yet. So that's all. I really thought we were going to fill up this whole board back here, but I don't think it's going to happen. I have around like 17 days of school left, if even, because we're out early because our district is building a brand new pre-K to 12 building. So they are demoing our high school building as soon as the kids are out. So we're out kind of early this summer. So I don't think we're going to fill up that board, but we're going to try really hard to get some more titles up there. Okay, so it's about 4 or 5 after, so I think I'm probably going to go ahead and get started. Colby said I could have like 15 minutes. That ain't gonna be enough time. So I'm gonna try to squeeze in everything that I wanted to talk about. There's Cassie. So let me start by saying I have a couple of books that have kind of helped me along the way when it comes with conferencing. I wanna show you those books first. So these are professional texts. Nicole, yay. This is the first one. And if you know anything about me, you know that Donalyn Miller, a few summers ago now, sorry, my phone had a thing. A couple of summers ago, I found Reading in the Wild. I don't even remember how I got a hold of it. Read it, and it kind of completely changed my philosophy about teaching and reading. And I'm so thankful that I found it, but you can tell this copy is well loved. And Donalyn signed it for me at Nerd Camp the year I met her when I was crying, telling her how much of a difference she's made in my teaching life, but I meant it because she's the best. So Reading in the Wild kind of helped turn me on to workshop when it comes to reading. So I started learning more about workshop, and then that kind of helped me learn a little bit more about conferring, because that's kind of the work that the teacher does during workshops. So if you don't have this book, if you've never read this book, you need to go get this book right now, and then you need to read it, and then you can come back and thank me later. She has the Book Whisperer too, and a lot of people are like, oh, the Book Whisperer, my number one book. This one, I loved the Book Whisperer, but this one, I'm really attached to this, to Reading in the Wild. So this one I love. You could read the Book Whisperer too, because it's amazing, and that one came out first, but I happened to find this one first. So this, I feel like you can open this up and you could start stuff in your classroom tomorrow, just trying it out. So that's this one. Jennifer Saravello, this one's called Conferring with Readers. This one is one that I just recently got. So I like this one because it has a lot of really good, this one has a lot of really good forms in it. I'm sorry, that's backwards. That's probably so annoying. And this one has kind of helped me with the logistics and the management of conferences a little bit more. So, of course, there's a lot of philosophy behind conferencing and kind of how you can support readers to actually help them grow. So this one is another one to check out if you are interested in learning more about conferencing with your kids. And you probably are, because you're here. So there's that one. To tell you a little bit more, I'm just going to tell you that. Tell you a little bit more about me. My name is Stacey Riedmiller. My last name is pronounced Riedmiller. Isn't that perfect? It's like, that's why I married my husband. I'm just kidding. He's amazing. So Stacey Riedmiller, I teach 4th grade language arts in a suburb right outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. I teach in a really small community. It's actually the community where I grew up and where I went to high school. So that's, really cool for me to kind of be here. This is my 5th year teaching. 5. My first year teaching, I taught 3rd grade language arts, moved up with my kids to 4th, moved up with them to 5th, and then they had to go to the middle school, and I wasn't certified to teach middle school. So I came back down to 4th, and I've been teaching 4th grade since then. I really like 4th grade language arts, but next year I'm teaching 4th grade language arts and social studies. So that's going to be a bit of a difference for me, but I know I can make it work, and I know there's a lot of ways. We do so many cross-curricular things anyways during workshops, so it'll be fine. I'm not an expert when it comes to conferencing with readers by any means at all. I am still learning myself. The first year that I started implementing some of Donna Lynn's philosophies, I did not even do conferences with my kids. I was working so hard on building up my library and getting my kids reading and getting them loving reading that I didn't do anything while they were independent reading. I would kind of sit back and I'm like, yeah, this is look around, they're doing it. It's so great. So I finally learned yeah, teacher, you're supposed to be doing something during that time. And it's kind of the hardest work I've ever done during that time when my kids are independent reading. So I saw Donna Lynn at the Reading Summit in Cincinnati about 2 summers ago, and she did a workshop on conferencing with readers. So if you have not seen her materials that she used during that, she has a slide share where she puts all of her forms and things that she uses. So you should check that out. If you just Google Donna Lynn Miller slide share, or if you type in maybe Golden Gate Bridge Method conferencing, you can kind of pull up her slide share. So she talked to us about the painters that paint the Golden Gate Bridge. And she talked about how, they kind of start on one end, paint their way across, and then by the time they get finished, it's kind of time to start painting again. So when she made that connection to conferring with readers, it kind of just made things click with me. I'm like, yes, okay. So I meet with all my kids, cycle through all of them, come back around, and I just start all over again. So that resource, you'll see me hold up some forms and things like that. That's where I get all of my forms. They have been from her, from that workshop. And one of the forms I think she got from someone else, she had, written at the bottom who she had gotten those questions from. But that's a great resource. You'll see me hold up those forms and you'll want them, and that's where they come from. So What are conferences? They are one-on-one conversations that you're having with your readers, and you should be having them weekly. So sometimes I think we feel like we have too much to squeeze in. I know that I'm not always doing a one-on-one conference when my kids are reading independently. Sometimes I have to do a running record, or I might pull them to just check on, one little goal that they might have had when we met last time. So I also might pull small groups during independent reading, especially during, reading workshop where we're working on a teaching point for the day. And then I decide that I need to come back and talk with those kids and say, does this make sense? Or when I see them turning and talking and they're just still not getting it, maybe I'll pull that small group over so I don't get to as many kids for one-on-one conferencing. But ideally, that's when it happens. It's during your independent reading time. So the goals that you set for yourself for conferences are going to vary, and the type of conferences that you do with your kids will probably vary also. I have a couple of different conferences that I do with my kids. The first one is called a habits conference, and this one is kind of a quick check-in. It's kind of like, hey, what book are you reading right now? What page are you on? What genre do you think this book is? And, just kind of go through a few questions, see how many books they've read for the year. We usually check in on that when I do a habits conference. But I'm looking at mostly, are my kids reading during class and are they reading at home? I have a lot of kids that still struggle with this whole school home book thing. Like we sit down and they're like, well, this is my home book and this is my school book. It takes quite a bit of time to get them to see that those two books can be the same book. But then, we talk about sometimes our parents do read aloud for us when we're at home, and sometimes we have books that we want to share with our siblings, so it's okay to have home books, but it kind of helps to sit down and say, okay, well, you've been reading this book for 3 days, and you read 30 minutes a day. This is how much you've read. If you read about 20 minutes at home or trying to squeeze in some edge time, you would be done with this book by the end of the week. So a habits conference is going to be quick. I try to meet with my kids weekly to do a habits conference because it's a check-in that takes about 5 minutes, maybe. So I have 23 kids in my afternoon class. And if I meet with about 5 kids a day, I can knock out all of them in 1 week. So 5 minutes, just asking them a few questions. I'll explain the questions in a minute, but so that's a habits conference. There's a comprehension conference that I do. Again, this is all from that presentation that I saw with Donna Lynn. So during the comprehension conference, that's a little bit more extensive. That's kind of a 2-page deal in my notebook. So during that comprehension conference, I'm getting a little bit more in depth with that student, and they're actually going to read to me from their independent reading book. The reason why I love this is because I always feel like when we do running records, we're required to keep track of fluency and words correct per minute, but those prompts or those short reads are always so detached, and they have nothing to do with the kids are into. So I really like the comprehension conference because they're reading to me from their independent reading book. My kids don't know their reading levels. It's not I'll be real, it's not a focus at all in my room. We're matching up readers with books based on if they feel just right and based on what they actually want to read. So when I meet with my kids, I can kind of tell if the level is appropriate for them just by listening to them read and then listening to them do a retell of that book. So this is a place where I can catch a lot of reading habits. So if you have a student who, let's say, is reading a graphic novel, and we know that when you're reading a graphic novel, there's a certain way to follow the panels. And you have to understand to know that when it's a square box, it might be describing the setting or a scene change or, a setting or scene change. And then the speech bubbles are talking, it's, what the characters are saying. So I can watch a kid read a graphic novel within maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and I can tell if they really know how to read a graphic novel. And then we can have a conversation about it if they don't. It's quick, it's simple. So this one also has a question of, how long do you think it's going to take you to finish this book? That's how you can tell if kids are reading at home or not. That's one of the ways. People are always talking about we need accountability for these kids. Okay, if you talk to your kids, that's kind of the accountability. You understand more about their actions and more about what they're doing when you're having conversations with them. So during a reading conference, if I'm asking a child how long they think it's going to take them to finish a book, if they say it's going to take 2 weeks, then maybe they're not reading that book at home. So I might say something like, well, what do you think if you read this on your way to soccer practice each night? Or if you read this, and I know that my kid has soccer practice because I know my kid because I talk to him. Or I can say like, hey, your sister does gymnastics on the weekend. Aren't you kind of bored during that time? Maybe you could take it with you then. And they're like, oh yeah, I could do that. So just little subtle ways to kind of get in there and have these conversations with them. And once you know them, it's so much easier. It's kind of like, okay, well, just keep a book with you so you don't have a reading emergency. So that's kind of the comprehension conferences. I only do one of those a quarter, unless I feel like I really need to hear a kid read more often. And sometimes I'll just go sit down next to a kid on the carpet and I'll just like tap them on the shoulder and I'll say, hey, start reading out loud for me. And 2 seconds and I can kind of check how they're doing in that one. So if I'm not conferencing, I might be doing like a running record where I'm pulling kids, or I might be doing an engagement inventory. If you don't know about engagement inventories, Google it. They're amazing. Jennifer Saravello has one in her book. I believe there's one in Reading in the Wild where you just kid watch. The last time I did this, I really caught myself by surprise because I was like, I know which of my kids are not engaged with reading right now. And the kids I thought were. And then 2 of my kids that I considered to be like these kids that are reading all the time, I watched them and I'm like, okay, talking that time, up blowing his nose again, wandering around the room pretending to blow his nose. So when you do an engagement inventory, it kind of helps you see like minute for minute because you just kid watch. It really helped me kind of reevaluate my conferences because I could say, hey, like I noticed when you were reading that Diary of a Wimpy Kid 4 last week, I was doing an inventory and I was kind of just watching you and you look like you weren't that into it. Are you feeling this book or not? So it's not always one-on-one conferences, but I try to do them every single day unless there's one other thing like that I might be doing, okay? So in a reading workshop, the kids' job during independent reading, their job is to read. There's no other way about it. If you want kids or if you expect kids to get better at reading, they have to actually spend time reading. And they need to spend a lot of time reading. And they need to read a lot of books. So my kids are doing their work. That's their job during independent reading. They know that's their job. What is my job during independent reading? To help them become better readers or to help them feel more comfortable to wear that reader title. So that's what I get to work and do. Many people are constantly asking me, well, how do you find time to talk to your readers? I have to talk to my readers while they're reading. I pop in on somebody, it takes 4 or 5 minutes. They still have 25 minutes to read for that day. I met with a girl last week who read during the whole stinking reading conference. She had her book and she's like, yeah, I don't know. It might take me a couple more days. I'm not sure. Like she was reading the whole time I was talking to her. And I'm like, I can't even be mad about that, right? So now we need to kind of talk about like organization and management of the conferences. So I always hear whatever management technique works for you and you should use it. Not everyone likes to write out notes. Some people like typing, some people like getting on the iPad, some people like recording their kids and then listening to it later. It just depends on what works for you. So I don't think you need to look at and see what other people are doing and feel like you have to do that. Like if something works for you, go for it, use it. If it works for your readers, do it, okay? So because hey, not everybody's ready for a binder this big. Look at this sucker. This is one of my classes. One. Look at that. Look at those tabs. Look at this quote from Donna Lynn Miller. Shocker. So I've got this giant binder, right? And I have a tab for each of my kids. Under that tab, I have, an interest survey that I did at the beginning of the year, seeing what they like to read, what they like to do, who they are, all this jazz about my kids, and then I keep my forms in there, okay? So, yeah, I know Colby was like, oh, you're really organized. Yeah, well, I've dropped this binder on my foot a couple of times, and let me just tell you, I have since moved to Google Forms, my friend. So in this binder, I keep my reading habits conference forms. So this is from that slide share that Donna Lynn did, okay? So mine looks a little different because I like a good font, okay? I don't have this up anywhere for you because it's not my idea. It's not my form. People keep harassing me on Instagram about posting it. I just can't do that, okay? But what you can do is you can go to the slide share and then you can work your magic and kind of take out what you don't want, put in what you do want. You could download some free fonts. I could tell you how to do that till the cows come home. But this is a habits conference. And look, I put 2 on a page so I could get more bang for my buck, right? This is that comprehension conference, that big old I was telling you about. This is, look at that sucker. Look at all those notes in Flair pen, of course. And then boom, boom, boom. She says it's going to take her 3 to 4 days, but only if she's reading at home. Oh, good, my friend. I will check back in with you and see how it's going. So those are all in my binder, okay? Now, what is in the kids' notebook? The kids, yeah, Donna Lynn Miller changed. Look, Donna Lynn Miller's changing lives, folks, every single day. All right. This is one of my students' notebooks, okay? This is a list of the books that this student has read for the school year. This was a form from Reading in the Wild, and I just changed it a little bit to kind of, so I could squeeze more sections in there. So this is one of the forms that my kids use, so they fill this up. This student has read almost 100 books this year. It's crazy. So the kids keep notes in here. They'll give me the title. They're going to tell me which number book it is for the school year. And they're going to tell me the genre, how many stars they would give it when they finished. Does it feel easy, just right, or challenging? When they started it, when they stopped it, and then why they read it. So this student has Mock Newberry, like he'll talk about, oh, I read that for Mock Newberry. He said he wanted to start a series here. He said he wanted to end a series here. This one's good. Fly Guy Insects. Why did you read it? Because I was bored. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's that. And at the beginning of their notebook, they have this form. And this is also, guys, all these forms are in Reading in the Wild, which is a professional book by Donna Lynn Miller. Okay? Now, this genre chart I took from Reading in the Wild, but I changed because it had graphic novels listed. And it took me about 1 year of using the chart. And this was kind of when graphic novels started getting big. So I got rid of graphic novels because, hey, graphic novel is kind of a format. It's not really a genre. So we know that, oh my God, I've already been talking 20 minutes. I'm sorry, Colby, I'm going to try to get going. So they keep track of how many books in whatever genre they've read. Now, this student's pretty organized. She even numbered hers. And then her circles, you can see, we did a mini lesson where we talked about some of the gaps in our reading life. And those were some of the gaps that she had in hers. And those are some genres that she wants to try to explore because, you know, she's not reading those. Okay? So what I've started doing for my stuff is Google Forms. So I think Scott Filner, who's my buddy, great guy, you should follow him on all the outlets. I'm pretty sure is the one who I saw having his students, he filled out a Google form for reading conferences. So instead of this big giant binder, what I've been doing now is I've been doing the Google forms. So I sit down with kids. I go to them, by the way, get up, go to them, go find them. I'm usually on the carpet or tucked down or sitting on a rolly chair or something. So I go over, I have my Google form pulled up, and I just type in their name, the date, when they started reading the book. And this is just while we're talking about it, right? So I'm not making it weird. You've got to do what's best for you. If you want to record your kids using an app like Evernote or something, you can do that. to make it feel more organic when you're talking to your kids. My kids kind of know I have my computer, so I don't think it really bothers them. They watch me as I'm typing in. So I kind of fill out like, okay, this is what they're reading. And when I ask them what the genre is of the book they're reading, that's when I can tell a ton of information about what they understand about genre. So I can see that I'm like, okay, well, this child is reading a book that's realistic fiction, but he thinks it's historical fiction. Why does he think it's historical fiction? Now we can have a conversation about the difference between realistic fiction and historical fiction. A big gap is between realistic fiction and fantasy. Sometimes kids are like, well, this could just be someone using their imagination, but I welcome those kind of conversations about genre. So Google Forms is kind of how I've moved into keeping track of things myself, okay? So why do we do this? Like, what is the purpose of conferring with our readers? Well, we know that we want to grow readers. That's our whole goal, right? We want kids to love reading, or at least that's my goal. My number one goal is not if they meet this MAP benchmark for the end of the year. It's not if they're reading on a level S, which they should be, but whatever, it's not always going to happen. My goal is to make sure that they love reading by the time that they leave me. So that's what I work hard on, and conferencing is the perfect time to do it. So I sometimes can even meet with my kids in the morning. I have my homeroom kids. I can pull a kid over, or I can go over to a kid's seat and be like, hey, remember yesterday you were talking about how you were probably going to finish whatever last night? Like, did you finish it? A lot of times what you'll notice is when you work hard to build that community with the kids, they come in and they come to you for conversations. So if a kid told me yesterday, like one of my girls was reading Bridge to Terabithia a couple weeks ago, and she was like, Mrs. Riedmiller, I'm probably going to finish like in a couple of days, but I'm kind of getting to that point where I don't want to stop. Like, I need to keep reading. So she came in the next morning and she was like, I was up all night last night crying. Like, I had to finish it. I had to finish it. So kids will start coming to you if you have this kind of reading community in place. And don't think that those little bits of conversations aren't like a type of conference, because it kind of is. It's your kids going out their way to tell you about their comprehension when it comes to a book and about their experience, right? So this is one more chance to connect with your kids. If you know your kids, you can say things in conferences that let them know that you know them and let them know that you love them. So you can sit down with a student and say, hey, like, I know you said that you were moving in with your dad last week. Like, how's that going, you know? So it's kind of, you can talk about reading comprehension, of course, but you also have a little bit of a chance to kind of work on those relationships that you probably already have in place with your kids. This is also a great time to give kids book recommendations. So sometimes I will see like, okay, I have one boy who's like really into dinosaurs, loves anything to do with dinos, and I found these dinosaur comics. Somebody else posted them, someone on Instagram, I think, posted these dinosaur comics, so I bought like 2 or 3 of them. So the next time I met with him, I pulled them out and I was like, hey, totally got these dino comics. Like, I really think I have kind of a weird job for you. Like, I don't know if these are really appropriate for the class. Do you think you could maybe read this and see if it might be a good fit for the library? And then watch a kid's face light up when you say something like that. First off, the possibility of inappropriate content, sign me up. Second, like, he knows that I know him. He knows that I value his opinion because I'm giving him this kind of big job of seeing if it fits in our library. You know, you've kind of got to be over enthusiastic to do this work. You have to be like, hey, I've got a really serious job for you. Do you think you can handle it? Because I was thinking about some kids and I was thinking you really could handle it. So, you know, this is the hard. So my signal went out. Sorry. There were a bunch of people watching and I was almost finished. Hopefully people come back. Yay, there they are. Okay, so my signal went out. I'm sorry. I think it's about to storm pretty bad in Cincinnati again. We had some really terrible storms last night. So I only had a few more things to say anyway, so I'll kind of wrap everything up. Okay, so what was I talking about? I think I was talking about how you can, it's like so good talking about how you can, build that relationship with kids during this time. Let's see. There comes some more people. Sorry, I got kicked off. It's so hot in this school right now. Oh my gosh, we have no air conditioning. It's like humid and sticky. Okay, so back to what I was saying. You have this chance to kind of sit down with a child and show them that you know them. You have this chance to sit down with a child and show them that you value them by giving them time. So I think sometimes during independent reading, a teacher sees that like their kids are off, they're reading, like let's just leave them alone, let's just let them read. But it's really the time where you need to be doing the most work, and you need to be helping to kind of keep that community alive, and you need to be, talking to readers about what they're reading and just about their lives in general. So I think that, if we have about 36 weeks in a school year, if you do one conference at least a week with your kids, that's 36 one-on-one conversations where no one else is talking to that child besides you. That's kind of a huge deal. Like showing a child that you value them so much that you have time for a one-on-one talk with them about what they're reading and about what they're doing. So make the time. You shouldn't have to make the time because you should already be doing independent reading, So use that time to connect with your kids and to make sure that the conversations are continuing to build that relationship with the students. Another thing that I wanted to say was that during a reading conference, if the rest of your class is engaged with reading, you will find that kids will not interrupt you. I know a lot of people are worried about other kids interrupting during a conference, but especially if it's a habits conference and you're keeping it moving and you're working about, just about 5 or so minutes on one child and you're up moving, kids are a lot less likely to interrupt. If you are sitting in one spot at like a desk or like I'm sitting at my kidney table right now, if you are staying stationary, kids will be much more likely to be able to approach you. We had to make a whole chart. It's not up still. We had to make a whole chart and do a mini lesson about what to do during independent reading when we feel the need to interrupt. But a lot of those problems we have, they're not really problems, are because we have a reading community. So it's a kid wanting to stop me and say, oh my God, remember you told me this was going to happen, or you told me something crazy was going to happen? It just happened, and I have to talk to you about it now. So we've kind of talked about, okay, let's go meet with one of our buddies during that time, and then you can come tell me like when we're transitioning into writing or something. So, you interrupt. Yeah, when you're like, hey, all right, now I need Kylie, come on over, and then everyone's like looking up and then they're distracted. It takes a while to get into that reading zone, that kind of moment where everything else around you kind of disappears and you don't really realize where you are. You're just engulfed in the book. So you don't want to break that. So if you move around quietly around the room, that's kind of the best thing. And it's also really cool when your administrator walks in and they can't find you because you're like sitting on the floor next to a student, and maybe you're only as tall as a fourth grader, but you're sitting next to that student and you're in the community, you're right there in the trenches working with those kids, and your administrators see that. So I wouldn't want you to fake it, but so I think that's about everything. I know a lot of people were asking about the forms. So Donna Lynn Miller has a slide share where she shares a lot of her presentations. The conferencing forms that I had are from her slide share. The reader's notebook forms that I had, those are all from Reading in the Wild. Okay. I think she even has some of the Reading in the Wild forms on her slide share. So that's something to check out too. I think that's about it. If you have any more questions about anything, feel free to put them down in the comments, and then I can maybe come back and answer some of those questions. So thanks, Colby, for letting me do this, and I'm sorry that it took so long. I knew 15 minutes was never going to happen, so I will see you guys later, and I hope that helped. I hope you got a little bit more, I don't know, I hope that helped with some insight when it comes to conferencing with your readers. Again, just it builds that reading community just by having these conversations with kids. So show your kids that you value them, show your kids that you love them, and try to be enthusiastic because you pass that off to your kids, and it's great. All right, happy Sunday. Have a great Monday tomorrow, and I'll see you guys hopefully at Nerd Camp this summer. Yay. All right, see ya.